Hey guys, me again, and today I'm going to walk you through how to throw your own successful video game tournament for your friends. Threw one last night, and through calculations in my head, figured out that it was the 12th video game tournament that I've thrown for my friends in the last 6 or 7 years. So I've learned a thing or two, so I thought I'd share those things with you. Gonna split this video up two ways. Gonna tell you the 4 different styles of video game tournaments that I've thrown, and then go through the top 10 tips I have for anyone interested in throwing a video game tournament. So the 4 styles that I've done are Olympic style, points-based tournaments, eliminatory tournaments like the Omegathon by Penny Arcade, and a team-based arena-style tournament like the G4 Show Arena that ran 7 or 8 years ago. So the first that I talked about is the Olympic style. So relatively simple. Pick a limited number of games, and for each of these games, make sure you can clearly award a first place, a second place, and a third place. Gold, silver, and bronze medals. Basically, the person at the end of the night with the most gold medals wins. And in case of a tie, you go to silver medals, and if there's a tie there, you go to bronze medals. So if someone has 3 golds, someone else has 3 golds, they both have 2 silvers. If one of them has a bronze and one of them has 0 bronzes, then the person with 3 golds, 2 silvers, and 1 bronze wins. Relatively simple. I found that that was the most successful way to do a games tournament when you're not doing it in an eliminatory fashion like what I'm going to talk about in a little while. Something that was a little bit less successful, but you can still experiment with otherwise, was a points-based tournament. So basically, beforehand, and this was actually a time-consuming process, stupidly time-consuming, you basically go through and decide the list of games, decide all the configurations and all the ways you want to play, and then you weight certain games differently. So what I mean by that is, say you have 7 games, and one of them is Halo, one of them is Mario Kart. Your friends like Halo more, so you give more points to the winner of Halo compared to the winner of Mario Kart. Problem with that is you can have someone win 3 games but not be the winner, or win the most games across the whole tournament but not be the winner because of the ways points are weighted. Very similar to Olympic in that you'd award points depending on how many, depending on place. So you can give it to 1, 2, 3, 4. You can give it to 1, 2, 3. But what I found didn't work with that is that you ended up having certain games that were worth more, and you'd have people that are upset. The third most successful way that I found to do tournaments in kind of the individual style, the last 2 we did individually, and this one's also an individual tournament, was an eliminatory tournament like the Omegathon. So this is what I did last night. I called it the Megathon, and basically beforehand I told them the 6 games that they were going to play in various genres and time of release. So the 6 games I had last night: Halo Reach, Mario Kart Double Dash, Donkey Konga, Super Smash Bros. Melee, and Bomberman Live, with the final 1 versus 1 game being an old board game, you can look it up, called Kerplunk. So basically the way it worked was I had 11 players come out last night, and basically each round players were eliminated. So in the first round, there's supposed to be 12 people, only 11 showed up. You had 1 person go out, then 2 people go out, 2 people go out, 2 people go out, 2 people go out, and the way that I ended up structuring the games is you would play until you win. So for the Bomberman round, which was the first game we played, basically it had pools of 4, and the winner of each game would move into the next round. Then you'd make pools of 3 with the people that are left, and then the winners of that would move on. And basically you'd go on until the last person who hasn't won is still left, and he's eliminated. So I found that worked really well. 1, because it was short, and 2, because it got interesting and people were really interested to see what happened as the night went on. I think for the last 3 games, everyone was kind of watching, and the nice part is the initial rounds where everyone is in take the longest, and then as you go on, it takes less time, so it doesn't piss people off. The last style, how are we doing for time here? 5 minutes. The last style that I used was a team-based arena style. So there was a show on G4 that ran for a couple years when I started to get G4 when they merged with Tech TV, hosted by Kevin Pereira, called Arena. And basically there'd be 3 games, teams of 4, and whoever took the game would win. So usually it was kind of an offbeat game, a shooter, and then a fighting game or something like that, if I remember correctly, or 2 shooters. And basically, the team that would win the 2 out of 3 would win the tournament. I've done team-based games where I'd have a lot more games in it. That's another way you could also do it. Now I'll go through the top 10 tips that I've learned through throwing a dozen video game tournaments for friends. The first being, be prepared. You need to have all the game types, you need to have all the configurations figured out beforehand, and you also need to know who's bringing what. So, for example, last night we played Halo Reach with 8 people, so that means you needed an extra TV, which I had. You needed an extra Xbox, 4 extra controllers, an extra copy of Halo Reach, and all the cables. So just make sure you have all that in order. The second being, bring extra equipment. Generally with these kind of tournaments, things fail. Last night I'll give you a perfect example. We were originally planning to use my house's Wi-Fi to do system link for Halo Reach. Unfortunately, what happened is the 2 consoles would never connect and they'd drop out. So I actually had an extra router on hand and extra Ethernet cables, so I just did a hard connection. You might want to have some of these extra items: cables, controllers, batteries, extra routers, because those are the things that generally fail or get misplaced in transit. The third is, have a transparent and fair scoring system and placing system. So generally what I do beforehand, I'd either send an email or have it on Facebook and say like, hey, these are the games we're playing, this is who's going to win, this is how you win the tournament. And after that, when people would come, each person would get a number, and I would pull from a hat to determine the pools of players. So for Smash Brothers, for example, pull numbers, 10, 8, 5, and 12, you're in the first round, and then pull from there. That makes it easy, and it also makes it fair. Next is, make it fun. So, you know, it doesn't have to run really smoothly. If people want to talk in the beginning, if they want to like chill, if you want to get the beers out, not a big deal. Just remember when you add alcohol to it that it'll get harder and harder to coordinate as the night goes on. So generally what I say is, and what I've learned from my greatest success, which was last night, keep the tournament to about 3 hours. That way people can chill and drink afterwards, or they can just play the games they want when the tournament's done. Next, have your friends pay a couple bucks. That way you can buy drinks and you can buy finger foods. Make sure the finger foods don't leave a mess. Stuff like Cheetos, for example, leave mess on controllers that you probably won't want. Next tip, as the organizer, like myself, you might want to sit out for the first time you do it. That way you can kind of run around and make sure everything's going smoothly and then participate the next time. Next tip, don't play too many games. In the first tournaments we did like years and years ago, we tried to get 13 or 14 games in. Not only does that add logistical nightmares because you have to incorporate all these extra systems and games and configurations in there, it just makes for a longer tournament and makes people irritable. I remember one of the first ones we threw went from like 7 to 3 in the morning. Just ridiculous. Usually what I would suggest for my next tip, keep it to 8 to 12 people to start. That way you can kind of keep things under control. Next tip, wireless controllers whenever necessary. Wires are just a mess. I'm so glad that we moved to wireless controllers. And the final one is, when you add a new game, make sure it's simple. So we added Bomberman Live. It's a really simple concept, basically control stick, A to drop bombs. There's a little bit of complexity added through the power-ups, but nothing too complicated. If you want to play something that people have never played before, make sure that it's really simple. Stuff like Worms, stuff like Bomberman. Any Mario game is relatively simple, so just consider that when you're throwing a tournament. So that's all the tips I have for you. Feel free to DM me or comment, and I'll answer any questions you have. Thanks a lot.